Hey, what's up? This is Will with Abysmal Hymns, and today we're going to be talking about Dragon Con with my good friend Amos, who I actually met there many moons ago. I would say probably it's looking at about,
98,
yeah,
1998, I would guess.
yeah, maybe even 2000. I think it was probably 2002 or four.
Maybe two.
Yeah, maybe two. That could be right. Um,
'Cause, our friend Dr. John showed up in 2000 or 2001. So,
yeah, so it would have been after that because I wouldn't have found you where I found you till 2002 anyway. So
right on.
that sounds about right. Um, but I mean, the folk, what we were going to talk about today is like, so Dragon Con used to be something that like I planned my year around. It was like everything. Like I have another friend where he was talking about how in all our conversations I would like base it around when Dragon Con happened or that type of thing. And so yeah, so that's just not even in my periphery now. I mean, I see that it happens on Facebook and stuff like that, but it's like to have gone from such an important event to me to something that I just started feeling not as attached to. I don't think it was growing up because I still get excited for Fantastic Four and stuff like that. Um, I'm gonna say, and I don't know if you will concur with this or not, but for me, it was even a couple years before COVID. I think a lot of us had gotten kind of disillusioned with the fact that it had gotten so big.
It did.
Um, and it turned into something where I know for me, you would be good if you got to two or three panels because navigating the halls or waiting in these like crazy lines and it was something that I think we both had like been participants of in the fact that I know that I had worked for Dragon Con doing security, working in media. So it was something that I was pretty passionate about. But yeah, so when did you notice things change?
I think it really started around maybe 2008 or 9. And then from there, it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And I have a theory. and, and I've had this happen to me in several instances and other things besides Dragon Con. People tell all their friends about everything that's going on, and they tell their friends, and they tell their friends. Kind of like that old commercial. And then all the cool kids show up just because they think it's cool, and there's no room for the people that were the original people that went there. I mean, like some of the tracks I used to love to go to, like even Mr. Star Wars and the Miss Star Trek universe and stuff like that. I used to love to go to that. Now there's like 3 and 4 hour lines to stand into to even get in. I mean, you could get a handicap pass or something if you wanted to lie, but it's just like, oh my God. So what I had to start doing was I would schedule 3 or 4 things that I wanted to go to, and I might make it to two, and even if I didn't make it to two, I would just people watch all day. So yeah, it's definitely a lot bigger, and I'm glad about that in ways for them because I mean it has been a good thing in Atlanta for many years, but it is so big now, and a lot of people that come to it are not like geeks and nerds like we were.
Right,
you
right.
know they just think it's cool. So you know
So when you first brought up, how you felt that it changed by it getting bigger and feeling less intimate or personal to you, it made me think of like Metallica. Like listening to Metallica when Master of Puppets came out was totally different and I was okay even with And Justice. and seeing them headline an arena for that. It still felt like the same band. It still had the same connection. But when the Black Album came out, then
That changed. Yeah.
yeah, then they were on MTV all the time, and we see where that went. Because with that, then they weren't just delivering the same product. So there's a compromise, I think, to growth to some extent. Um, and I guess even like theme parks like Disney, you know, Disney is still gets like bigger crowds than ever, but over the years they've come up with ways to still make it a magical experience, you know.
Right.
And because that's the product they're delivering. So with Dragon Con, it seems like you can have, you know, you can invite the muggles, but at some point, when are you not delivering the same experience? When is it going to be Mardi Gras and not a fan convention? You know,
Right.
because I've been to Comic Con in San Diego, and it was exactly that. Like, it's so huge. You're waiting in line all day to go to one panel in this massive hall. Um, but that's more of a trade show, you know. That's become like an industry vehicle rather than
It's run by the industry and by the big corporations. And the charm of Dragon Con was it was always run by the fans, you know.
right, right.
So
And I kind of saw that even in some of the programming. Like I started seeing panels that had nothing to do with what the theme originally was, you know. Like stuff like shit, I'm trying to think. Like even at like a Dukes of Hazard panel or you know, like something like that or something about like a reality TV show or anything that is not genre related. um I, I don't know, you know.
I started going to a few that were like for the paranormal, and they were kind of lean as far as the crowd went. And now they're, I guess it's just whatever is popular at the time. I don't know what show was trending that made the paranormal track go kaboom, but it went kaboom after I went 2 or 3 years.
Well,
Maybe they just need to hire me to
you
go.
know, that is it's funny you say that because like that is huge online right now on YouTube. Like there's a bunch of paranormal like ghost hunting podcasts. There's one that's really good called the Paranormal Files. It's worth checking out. Um, but that has gained a younger audience now, which I think, you know, people will be like, oh, or you're gatekeeping. Don't, you know, you got to let new people in. I totally agree with that. Um, but I think that's like having panels on Harry Potter kind of suits that need, you know, having a panel on even like Pokemon. I'm cool with that. Pokemons are monsters and they are magic and there's some science fiction because you got these balls that are trapping them. And I'm okay. I might not be into Pokemon, but I understand that there's a place for that. There's a place for Pikachu next to Yoda. I totally agree. Um, but I think when you dilute something, it loses its value, you know, and its integrity, really, to some extent. I mean, I don't know. Am I crazy, or do you think those are valid
Oh, no,
concerns?
not at all. Pokemon paid off a friend of mine's house though.
Yeah.
He bought like 4 or 5 of the big boxes, and just, I mean, he doesn't collect anything like that. He just stuck them in the back of a filing cabinet at his office and forgot about them. And now I think he sold each one of them for like 30 some thousand. They were some of the original ones that came out. I'm like, you know.
I remember I had a thing of Pokemon cards that I was just going to give my brother, and it was like in one of these little like plastic things that you would keep baseball cards in. Somebody had given it to me. I was like, oh yeah, I'll get around to giving that to him. And that was moving. and I just gave it to this neighbor that was coming by to take stuff, so I didn't have to move it. But I'm sure now, because like the value of all that stuff after like Pokemon Go came out, I'm sure totally shot up. I could have bought a house with it, but is what it is. So yeah, so you've been going for what, 28 years now? That's
Yeah, since '97.
okay.
I remember the second year I went was, I guess, the first year that Gore played, and I really wasn't into them, but I went and seen them, and there was like plenty of standing room in there. If that tells you how the crowds have just gotten like, wow,
Right, because like War was playing, that was in the Hyatt, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah. And now most of the bands have moved to across the street. They're at the Marriott now, right?
in one of the big
Yeah,
ballrooms.
yeah, yeah.
Whoever's got the biggest ballroom, I think. I forget where Cruise Shadows played the last time they played, but it was in one of the bigger ballrooms.
I mean, in even like Crew Shadows. So I remember the last time I saw them, and it probably was 2018 or 17. But they were totally different as well. Like it was like more pop than like a goth band. Like they had like a Britney Spears like dancing chick and stuff going on, and their music was different too. And which I get totally.
Yeah.
That dark wave thing was going in a more future pop direction.
Yeah, they were
Um,
what I always listened for when I walked into the Marriott every year because they would have the girls dressed up like Crew Shadow fairies or whatever with
right,
studs and spikes and wings, and you would hear their sound. They had
right.
the
They would
thumping.
have it playing on the speakers at their booth
Yeah.
for sure. So, you've gone more recently than I have. How was it last year?
Last year was good. I mean, it wasn't as lean as the first year after COVID, but it was still it was manageable. It wasn't as big as 2019, but it was close. So 2019 was the huge, 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 huge year, and really the year before that too. Um,
Right.
I remember it 2018. It was so big. I went to the parade for a change because sometimes I don't like to get up in the morning and go chase that parade, but that year I did, and it was so big. I don't know if you remember when the Braves won the World Series and they just packed out Peachtree Street. There were more people. I felt like there were more people there for that parade that day than
Right,
there.
because the parade you don't have to have a pass for, you
Mm-mm.
know.
It was just packed, and I mean, it was so packed. I left. I was like, it got to the point where it was no fun.
Right,
had,
right.
had to
I
go.
I've had to work security for the front door at the Hilton. No, the Marriott downstairs. Um, During the parade, and I would get like people coming up to me and can't let anybody in. Some like lady was like, "I'm 80 years old. I just have to go in to get some water." I said, "So what you're telling me is you've had 80 years to prepare for this experience and you're still unprepared. So why am I supposed to feel sorry for you?" Um, but I think that too, like Saturdays with the parade, that's when things inevitably felt like they were like getting out of control with the crowds. Like
Right.
Fridays was pretty manageable and Sundays was pretty manageable. And it seemed like it was turning into a week-long convention. Like every year, people were getting there earlier and leaving later. So
Right.
like now Monday is like almost like a day unto itself. And the
Hmm.
same thing could be said of Wednesday, I guess now.
Yeah. When I lived a little bit closer, I used to go down and walk the habit trails and the hotels and stuff like that. And one year I went like on a Sunday, the Sunday before Dragon Con, and walked, and I ran into some people that were already there. on that Sunday. And it doesn't technically open until Thursday.
Right.
There's a lot of people there on Wednesday and even Tuesday. So
Yeah, like Wednesday, it was almost like a Friday night party when I think the year before COVID, that's what it felt like.
yeah, it was huge.
Which that's cool, like up until a point, but then by the time, first off, and maybe this is just getting older, but if you go to that on Wednesday, then by the time Saturday rolls around, well, you're already burnt out. And maybe that's it. Maybe like my battery life for being around people has shrunk over the years. Um, but I was totally exhausted from people by Sunday, and I think that I just did all my shifts, security shifts, and then as soon as I like had those done, I didn't go. I didn't go back. So maybe that was it. I went I guess not the first year back from, yeah, not the first year back from COVID, but the year after. So that would have been, I think it was
22?
2020, 22.
Yeah, 22.
22. I did not get a pass because they were doing I think you had to have a vaccination card for it still at that point,
Or it was a vaccination card or a current test
our
that
current
showed.
test.
Yeah,
You know, at that point, we were like already what, a year out of the woods.
at least.
So to me, that felt like you were taking a stance. And, you know, I just had a badge from previous years and walked around with it turned the other way and would wave it around or act like I was on the phone and just breeze through. Um, just because you know, I wasn't planning on getting a vaccine to go to DragonCon. I'm not turning this into a vaccine conversation. It's
Right.
just that's just how that's just how I feel. That that particularly at that point,
There was some, I mean, if you paid attention to the Facebook groups and stuff like that during that time when, you had to have a vaccine or the current test and stuff like that, there was some division, I mean, between
right?
people in the groups, and I hated to see that. I really felt like that was a personal choice that shouldn't have been thrust on individuals, like, here, you got to do this.
And I think that that is where the whole vibe kind of took a turn was when, because now you have people on DragonCon Facebook pages year round, you know, which is cool. I get it. Um, but it, you know, in years before, I think there was some relief of being around your tribe, or those were your felt like your people that you didn't get to see except that time of year.
Right.
So that type of so then I don't remember politics ever coming up. I don't remember, I don't remember there being division, I mean,
Right.
I think that it was okay that like that culture was accepting of all types of people and that's
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
But I think that once that happened, then it became, well, if I'm about this issue, I'm about all the issues, and the battle lines were drawn, and it felt very tense at the 2022 one. Am I crazy or were you?
Oh no, it did. I've noticed that the past couple of years because used to you would show up like you said, and you would talk to people about whatever you were into, whether it was Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, whatever. I've learned a lot about a lot of TV shows just hanging out at Dragon Con.
Right, right, right.
But it's like something shifted and people just kind of got like, political, really. I was like, hmm. I was talking to my girlfriend earlier. I don't really care who you are, where you from, who you voted for, what you do in the bedroom. If you're cool to me, I'm cool with you, you know. And I've always been that way, but it did kind of change.
Which I think is a shame because in the world we always now more than ever we need more points of connection than disconnection.
Right.
And something like connecting over Buffy, there are people in the Buffy panel that I would not hang out with in the streets in normal life, but that was one thing that we were like bonded over. If you were in that panel, you were into Buffy, and it was, that was the end of the line there. And, you didn't have to talk about anything other than that. I don't even know if they have Buffy panels now because of Josh Whedon, like Josh Whedon got canceled or something. So I don't even know if he's on the agenda because there used to be a whole Whedon verse panel that was at it got moved to the West End, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of how I adapted, over the last couple of years that I did go, is I just went to the West End or I went to the Sheraton. Because the West End had all the horror panels.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's, and the Sheraton had the Brit pop panels and paranormal was there too. So I didn't have to get too entrenched in going to panels at the Hilton or the Hyatt or the Marriott, which I don't even know if they still have. Do they still have panels at the Marriott now?
I didn't pay attention last year.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, because there's those little rooms that are kind of like off in those hallways, like to
Yeah.
the left, I remember. But yeah, so you're going this year?
As far as I know, yeah.
All right, cool. So what do you like how what would you like to see happen this year as opposed to your experience from last year?
Mm,
If you were going to have a perfect weekend and everything was going to fall into place for you.
hmm. I've really had a good time either way. I'm pretty
Okay.
adaptable, but and I grew up around my mother and grandmother. I'm a natural born people watcher and observer like that. So I mean, I could go and just watch people and I'd be cool. But um, I I don't know. I'd like to see a little bit more music, and I have noticed some of my friends that I've met through the Atlanta music scene and around the metal stuff that I go to and the rock stuff that I go to. Some of them, their bands, some of the younger bands are playing at Dragon Con this year. If I could remember their names, I would tell
Right,
you.
right.
But I'm like, I can't remember their names. But
Yeah, see, that's the thing with like the music, there has never really been, not going to say never because there's a couple exceptions. I think Guar ruined it for a lot of bands because then they didn't want to book that type of thing because they messed up like the floor in the Hyatt. So like Guar can never play there again. Um, but I never felt like the music was like a good indication of like what the people actually listen to there. And you say, well, when you have 80,000 people, how are you going to decide what all of them can agree on? I mean, I think it kind of splits. I think you have like, the goth kids. You have, I'm sure there's like a huge like K-pop thing that they're into, then like the whole like bilking thing and then metal, you know. And there's totally, the only metal bands I can remember playing there are Iced Earth played there once, Spock's Beard played there once, and I'll call them metal adjacent. Um, Blue Oyster Cult played there.
I
Um,
forgot that.
like they had Alice Cooper at a panel. Did you go to that Alice Cooper panel?
I don't think so.
I think it was in like 2014. But that was great. It was at the I think he was at the West End, and he just fielded questions for an hour, you know. But really, how much was Alice Cooper asking? What was his asking price? Like, even if he had to scale back his production and he didn't bring in the guillotine and all that, how much more expensive is he than, Blue Oyster Cult?
Right.
You know, I mean, and I think there's probably some other people in that kind of price point that they could have. I mean, obviously, you're never going to get Kiss or Iron Maiden or anything like that. Don't even think about that. But you get Ace Frehley solo.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he goes pretty cheap when he's not opening up for Cheap Trick at chili cook-offs. But I would think, yeah, that's. It seems like there's a neglected demographic there, and Dragon Con. I became aware at some of the volunteer meetings how they were talking about how they wanted to be more uh, family oriented. You
Yeah.
know,
Uh,
which kind of conflicts with how it was in the past, where once it got dark, then the freaks came out at night,
yeah.
and it was like the
You didn't want to
precursor to
bring your kids
Frolicon.
at night.
Right, right, right. And they shouldn't be up that late anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like that it was like two separate cons. And even then, during the day, you're gonna bring your kids around people that are drinking. I mean, you probably remember because I think I saw you there when I had London back in a stroller when she was in a stroller, like as like a small baby.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, she got scared of a couple elves here and there, but other than that, I think she did all right. Pinhead didn't scare her. It was the nurse from uh what's that video game? It's kind of apocalyptic. Silent Hill. That
Oh, okay.
that nurse scared
I
her.
actually played that video game on
Yeah, yeah. The
so I'm
movie
pretty
was
sure.
pretty decent, I thought. So yeah, so that's that. More music. They could probably dial in the music a little bit better because it doesn't have to be, you know, Cruise Shadows as a headliner. I know Health played last year. They're kind of a newer industrial band, and I would have actually wanted to see them. Um, and funny enough, they have a video. I'll have to send it to you that they shot at Dragon Con. Like part of it shot at Dragon Con, and part of it is shot at MomoCon.
Right.
And it's like the guitar player just like standing on elevators, going through the crowd that's like dressed up as Sailor Moon and whatever. But that's pretty cool.
Everything changes, man.
Yeah, yeah. I guess
It's
that is the same. And but I think that's the thing. Everything changes, but like using Disney World as an example, Disney World has a brand. So when you're buying a ticket to Disney World, then you know what you're getting.
right.
And I think that for me, it feels like not only the programming has been a little bit diluted, but it's missing that connected element where you feel like, okay, these are my people. I don't know. Maybe that's coming back. How did you feel like they were your people last year, or was that still
Uh, um, I guess that was my second year with my new girlfriend, so really I didn't pay attention to that.
right?
I seen what I called some of the usual suspects. I go to the Hilton, and Chuck and his wife Joy are there. They're always there, and I see people like that, and I always go say hey to them and a few others. But um, I don't really remember making any new friends. I know that. So
Okay. Which you know, it gets hard to do that when it gets to be so many people, and I think people have just gradually become more disconnected. You know,
I bet
maybe
that'd be
that
self.
was maybe that was a certain part of it is the shell shock of just dealing with people online.
Mm,
Conversations don't happen. I mean, conversations don't happen in line at the grocery store like they used to.
right.
So maybe that's just more of a bigger picture society issue.
Yeah. I
But
guess too, I had to always, like, I remember back in the day, I had to get the paper guide. You
right,
go through the paper guide and find what you wanted to go to and look where it was at. And, and you had to talk to people about how to find it. And now I've been going for so long, I know where everything's at pretty much. But, it's different when it's on a phone than when it was on paper like that.
right, because then you have people just another moment where they don't pull their faces away from their phone.
Right. They'll just say, look at the app or check the
Right.
app, you know. So,
And people used to stop and ask you for directions or say that they were looking for something. Um, and there was a lot less of that.
yeah.
So yeah, so I can see, but I mean, I think that, and I guess it's up to the individual, but when you're at a convention, I think that's the point is to convene and find connection with like-minded people. Um, so that is an opportunity I think that people could use to do that,
Right.
but maybe we've just kind of
Right. I'm prob
drifted a part of that.
Yeah, I'm probably the guy that got the most of that Marriott carpet when it got yanked out of the Marriott that got so famous.
Right?
I've made a lot of friends with that, but at the same time, I still like they have all these groups. I don't really feel connected to those groups.
Sure, sure.
But, people talk to me about that and they ask me, how'd I get it? How'd I do this? How to do that? So that's kind of cool. You know,
And now you're selling that online, or is that
so
just part
I
of your
did.
overall shop?
I've pretty much sold all of it.
Okay,
I would just sell it on my online store on Facebook.
right.
And some people would get me to ship it. Some people would pick it up at con. It's just, whatever. I gave a lot away and stuff too. So I've still got, I think, right at 3 circles that I'm going to get together pretty soon. They're like the big 6 foot complete circle.
Right. Okay.
I'll probably auction those off. So
All right. Well, I'll put a link to your store in the description below so people can, because you have more than carpet. You deal with all types of.
comic books, vinyl, old books, older things, anything older, I'm about it. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool. Well, I'm sure that,
toys.
yeah. And so, how, like, we'll close off with this, but I've heard that now the dealer room, you're talking about a line that is an hour or more wait.
Right.
Did you make it in the dealer room last year?
Yeah, I did, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell people what I do, and it'll probably jinx it, but I wait till like after 12:30, 1 o'clock on Monday and go.
Okay.
But even last year and in 2019, I did the same thing. You still had to wait almost an hour, and they only let so many people in at a time, I guess, to throttle the crowd. But
And so on
I would think
Monday, they're not already packing up.
they're packing up, but not completely. And there's still deals to be found and stuff.
Right, right,
I would think that that big of a crowd might actually work against some of the sellers there, and they pay big money for them booths. And people are like just gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, gotta get to the next thing instead of being a little bit slowed down. I remember when the dealer room was in the basement of the Marriott.
right, right. Yeah, I remember that too. And it used to be easier to navigate, where now, if something's on the other side, that's could be 4 or 5 people between you and that,
Exactly.
and it just might not. There might not be a civil way to get to it. Um, so Yeah, you definitely, I'm sure that the traffic flow and the congestion can be a lot if you're a dealer. And those booze aren't cheap for the weekend, I would imagine, you
I
know?
think they're closer to $2,000 or
Right,
more. Yeah.
right.
When I
Which is
started when I started inquiring about maybe getting one, there was a 4-year wait and they were like $950.
okay.
I thought, dang, that's high. And now they're like 2 grand. Of course, the immortal badges or eternal badges, excuse me, the eternal badges are like they were like 350 when I first started going, and now they're like 4 grand. So yeah,
And I know that, have you been to Toylanta yet?
once.
Okay. Because I know that there's a lot of like smaller, like dealer-based conventions that are
That's
popping up.
I really enjoyed Toyland. I did,
Okay. I
and
heard it's gotten a lot bigger.
it is. And I didn't go to Fanboy Expo in Knoxville this year, but I went last year, and it's got a lot of good stuff. It's just a one level show, but I think this year, as far as celebrities went, they had a pretty good lineup, and they had Gene Simmons there.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And,
That would be the big
so
one.
yeah,
I, yeah, I've met Gene and Paul. I haven't met Peter's the only one. I met Ace at a horror convention.
there you go.
Um, but you know what I've been going to down here is either the Oddity Expos or Bigfoot conventions. There's the Florida Bigfoot convention, like every springs at like the
In Florida, they call it the Skunk Ape, though, don't they?
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, there are a lot of skunk ape people there, and there's two distinct camps. One wants to like put on camo and go hunt him in the woods, and then the others are like hippies that want to drop acid and think that he's like a spirit being. Um, where I'm fine. He can be interdimensional. I can, I don't have to drop acid to see that, but I don't think he's just a monkey in the woods. But that's how it goes. We all got our thing. And it's funny because now there's even division in that community where you got the name for people that just think he's a monkey are called apers. And so there's an aper group
That's great.
and then the paranormal group. But
Uh,
well, cool. It was
good.
good talking. We'll have you back on and talk about some toys and stuff. And
That
I'll
sounds like a plan.
post a link in the description so you can check out Amos's store.